friends, welcome back to another video. At the beginning of September, I joined Lindsey from Lindsey's Little Library and Sarah from Sarah's Nightstand to do a 5-star prediction video. I chose 3 books that I thought were going to be 5 stars. They each chose 3 books for themselves that they thought might be 5 stars. And today we are all following up on whether these 3 books lived up to our expectations. The 3 books that I chose was Lion by Saru Brearley, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson, and The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult. So let's start with Lion by Saru Brearley. This book was recommended to me by Krista from Books and Jams, I think in one of her live sprints. We're talking about memorable nonfictions, books that are emotional, stand out, make you cry, and this one was mentioned, and then I found it in a little free library. And this book wasn't quite 5 stars for me, but it was a fantastic nonfiction that I would still happily recommend to many people. Saru grew up in a very poor, tiny village somewhere in India, and one day he got on a train with his brother, ended up falling asleep, and then gets lost. And he has no idea what his hometown is called. He doesn't even know his last name. He doesn't know how to get home. He ends up in Calcutta, which is one of the poorest and also most dangerous cities in India, ends up in an orphanage, ends up getting adopted by a family from Australia, grows up, lives the majority of his life in Australia, but he still has so many unanswered questions about where he grew up and what happened. And so he decides to use Google Earth to scour the country of India based on some memories of some landmarks that he had of his tiny little village. He ends up finding it, reuniting with his birth family, and that reunion was beautiful to read about. It did make me tear up, and overall it was a beautiful story. I don't think it was quite as wow to me, maybe even with the flow of it or how it was written, it just felt a little basic, but it was still a beautiful story. I have not yet watched the movie, but I definitely will because I think that it's gonna be amazing, and a lot of people say the movie is better than the book, so I will have to see for myself. Then I picked up The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. This is a book that I have had on my shelves for over 10 years. I talked about this book in a couple videos earlier this year about a book that's been living in purgatory for me. I didn't want to get rid of it, but at the same time didn't want to read it. And so I finally did it for this video. In hindsight, I probably shouldn't have done a 5-star prediction because I did not have high expectations with this book, which is kind of the purpose of a 5-star prediction. But I threw it in for this video and for this project. Am I glad I read it? No, I'm not. This was not a 5-star by any means. This was a 2-star read for me, if that. And I feel like there are definitely 2 camps for this book in this series. There's people who love it and there's people who hate it. And I didn't hate it, but I almost hated it. So I definitely fall on that end. It was just way too dark and gross for me. Just not my kind of book at all. This book is brutal when it comes to rape and sexual content, just to the extreme that I could handle. It was unnecessarily violent and gruesome and gross, and neither of the main characters were very likable for me. Because this book is also translated and it's mainly set in Sweden, I felt like I was missing a whole backstory and background to like fully grasping this book. I feel like this book is jam-packed with like Swedish references and culture that I just cannot relate to or wrap my mind around, and I can imagine that being pretty cool for some people, but for me it just took me out of the story because I was already not really loving the mystery and what happened. So yeah, all that to say, I will not be continuing the series and I will not be keeping this one around, and also absolutely nothing against anyone that does love this book in this series. It was just not for me, and I kind of should have known that. And then my third book was The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult. I actually finished this literally like 10 minutes ago. Squeezed it in just in time to film this video and get it uploaded. This is a historical fiction beloved by many. Jodi Picoult is an author that is well known and loved, and this book was my first exposure to her writing and storytelling. This is a dual timeline, multiple perspective historical fiction. It's a bit hard to describe this book without telling everything because there are so many perspectives and there's so many moving parts to the story. The heart of the story though is the present day timeline where a young woman whose life has fallen apart due to grief and loss and turmoil. She's a baker and befriends this old man that always goes to the bakery, and they meet at a grief group class together, and he confesses to her that he was an ex-Nazi officer and he asks her to help kill him, and he's seeking absolution and forgiveness for his past crimes. So then the story jumps into the past. We learn about this man and his life story and everything that happened. We also learn about this young woman's grandmother and her story during the Holocaust, and there's other side characters and things going on, and at the end it all gets wrapped up. This book was a good historical fiction. It was not a 5-star historical fiction. The ending was incredibly underwhelming for me. I was very disappointed with how it wrapped up. I had an idea of where it was going to go, and if it was going to go that way, I was like, yes, this book is going to be incredible because it's going to have that forgiveness, redemption, human ending, like resolution piece that I love in these harsh stories, but it didn't go that way for me. And so I was like, let down. So this book is like 3.5 stars. I also wouldn't recommend this book to everyone in terms of the heaviness of brutality of it. I would give a warning, because to me, out of all of the historical fiction that I've read around the Holocaust, this one felt the most, I guess, realistic, but also most harsh and brutal and just violent description of what happened. And I think that's partially because we get to sit in the perspective of the Nazi officer who committed all these evil things without having any remorse. And that's usually a perspective that I don't read too often, right? We're usually reading from the victim's perspective, someone who experienced evil things done to them or to their loved ones, and we get to have some sort of emotional relief with their pain, and we get to experience that when we read these stories. But this one, you just sit in the mindset of someone who's doing these evil things to people, and that was just really hard to read. Not badly done, I would say. It didn't feel over the top, it didn't feel like emotional manipulation. It definitely played a role in the story, but again, not an easy read at all. So to wrap up this video, the 3 books that I read, I would put in this ranking order. Lion was 4 stars, The Storyteller was almost 4 stars, and The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo was 1.5 stars. I'm going to happily watch the movie of Lion. It'll probably make me cry. I will definitely be trying another Jodi Picoult. I have a few of her other books on my shelves, so I'll happily read from this author again because I really liked her storytelling. I think it was well done. And as far as World War II historical fiction goes, which I've been kind of in a weird limbo state with anyways of whether I like it or not or enjoy reading them, this one was definitely on the end of being well done versus some other ones that I've read before. And The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, this book is gonna go bye-bye. I'm gonna try to forget that I read it. So that is that. Thank you, Lindsey and Sarah, for letting me join BookList Thursday and this little 5-star prediction project. Please go watch their videos to see what books they read and whether they lived up to the hype. And what I would like from you guys, if you are so willing, is please comment below what you think a 5-star book for me would be. I really want to end this year strong, and I already have my November TBR picked out, and I'm really hoping some of those books are going to be amazing. So fingers crossed for that. But I just feel like I need some more books I'm going to love before this year is up. I need some fantastic reads. So please let me know if you have any recommendations for me. I'm always looking. If you have a feel of my reading tastes, let me know. I would highly appreciate it. And thank you all for watching this video. I'll see you in another one soon. Bye.